All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to hop on to our webinar this afternoon. As usual, I'll point out that there are the chat feature that's there in your webinar controls. So if you have a question that's you want to bring up partway through, that's fine. We'll see if we can answer those, or if nothing else, we can get back with you after and answer that question for you. So this is in relationship to the release that was just sent out yesterday. And so it's 3.13.0.3477 or 76, either one of those versions that you might have is fine for either PrebuiltML X or Estima software that you have. And so we're just going to go through a couple of the different features that we've made available in this new version. So I'm going to pull up framing plan here to start with. And so one of the new features relates to the segment tool and new conditions, or a different type of condition that you can apply to a segment line as you work on floor systems and roof systems. So I'm going to come over here to actually, I'm going to come to this rim condition. Let's just say, for example, that I have some rim that's, or I have a deck that's out back here, and I need to attach it to this rim material that's here. So I wanted like a double ply of rim along here. Now you could accomplish that a couple different ways, but one thing that we can do though is we can draw another segment line in of that material. So I'm going to just draw some in right here, have that extend for a ways across this section. And so now I've got a segment line getting my second ply of material in that particular area. But the trouble is that, as you can tell, the joists are not being cut back by that. And in some cases, if you had much thicker rim material, that could actually be pretty significant and may actually impact the length of the joist. So what we can do is we can come to this condition, and before we could have set it to flush, but of course that would generate hangers, which would be a problem. In this case, we don't really need hangers. So instead, what we can do is we can set it now to this new condition called flush no hanger. So when we do, you can see that those joists now are respecting the thickness of that member and are being cut back, but no hangers were applied by default. So again, just as a simple example out here in the middle of the floor, just as an example of how this works. Again, I'm going to set this to flush no hanger for that particular segment line that I just drew. And you're going to see now that as a result, the joists are cut top and bottom, but no hangers were applied to it in that case. So other places that you could find that useful would be on a roof system where maybe it's just a compression ridge and you don't necessarily need any hangers in particular. So several different places where you might find that useful throughout your projects, where you still get the members cut back by the material, but at the same time you don't have to deal with hangers that you then would want to remove right away. So again, you get to that by right-clicking on the segment line, going in condition, and finding flush no hanger. Another feature that we've released in this version relates to the pitch of a container. So if you have a floor system that's maybe just slightly pitched in like an exterior deck scenario, or you have a roof system, but in this case, you want the joist to be running perpendicular to the pitch. So I have gone to my page here called my pole barn example that I've just sort of hand drawn in a little example here. So it's not to say this is the pole barn is the only place that you might use this feature, but it just gives us a good opportunity to illustrate what it's about. So as far as our starting point here, from where we're starting from, I'm also going to pull up our 3D viewer just because it'll help clarify exactly what's going on here. So we've got a floor system right now that I've drawn in, two halves of this floor, and it's right now they're just sitting flat there. And of course, I'm kind of looking for the pole barn type of look. So I'm going to come to these two containers first of all, and I'm going to highlight both of them, and I'm going to apply a pitch to them. So you can see basically these two containers, they're basically matching up above and below. So 11 footers, got 8 in each of the bays. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go to my pitch, and I'm going to choose to set it to 8 for those particular containers. Now, as a result, you can see that all of those members just got longer. So it's got some 13 footers, 14s in the center bay, and so on. And you know, it does exactly what we would expect it to do as far as the general behavior of the program. But if I come up here and take a look at my 3D viewer, so this is what we would expect it to do, but not really what we want it to do in the case of this pole barn type of condition. So to fix that, or using the new feature that's available now, what I can do is I can now right click on the container and choose from the option pitch perpendicular to members. So essentially we're saying we want the pitch to be running perpendicular or opposing to the direction that the members are currently running in the container. So I'm going to check that box. When I do, you can see what happens on this upper one. So all those were now returned to those 11 foot because they're no longer need to be pitched because they're running crossways to the pitch. So they still are 11 footers compared to the 13s and 14s down here. But you'll also notice that now instead of 8 in each bay like I have down here, I now have 10. And that's because the pitch of the container is influencing the on-center spacing. So both are still set at the same on-center spacing. In this case, this one is 16 inches on center. You might not be able to see that in the drop-down menu. And this one also is 16 inches on center. So they're both the same, but the on-center spacing has now been pitch adjusted. And if we pull up our 3D viewer, now you can see that one half is reflecting, the one that we just fixed is reflecting that look, while the other one's still that kind of gone astray there. But we'll fix the other side now. Set it to pitch perpendicular to members. And now if we take a look at our 3D viewer, now we've got that look going on there. So the main thing is, again, you may not use it for pole barns, but you may find other usefulness for this type of thing where you want the on-center spacing to be pitched while the members themselves remain flat. So that's again, the way that you get to that is right-click on a pitch container, and you should have the option now to set the pitch perpendicular to the members. Going back over to the upper floor framing, user feedback that we got from the field was saying that there were times where you wanted to be able to toggle all the labels on the page off. Maybe you were just trying to fine tune some things and the labels were overlapping and you still wanted the label for the actual final layout, but you just wanted to make sure, or you needed to be able to make adjustments partway through it without those labels being in the way. So we've introduced a new feature over here in the takeoff items list. There's this button that's called hide or unhide all the labels. By default, it's off, and you can see it's at an international no symbol. So if I push it in, all of the labels that are on the page related to materials have been now shut off. So that allows you to zoom in closer. So like over here where there were a bunch of labels before, I can select that particular member, make that adjustment, fine tune what I want. And then I can come back over here and turn the labels back on. Even use the automatic label position as well to get things where they go. But the function over here where you can toggle that back off and on is new available in this version. Now, knowing how many times for you producers you're kind of in and out of those states as you work through your project, so we also hooked that button up to a hotkey. Coming up to the tools menu and pull up the settings tab and come to the hotkeys, just to remind you of that this feature is available. We have all the different types of hotkeys that you may want to use. So again, encourage you, if you're not using hotkeys yet, find the functions that the handful, maybe it's just 3 or 4 of them, that you use on a regular basis throughout your jobs. Find those hotkeys, maybe change them to something that's more convenient for you and start using those. Will greatly improve your efficiency and your speed in your projects. But this new one is down here called toggle labels. Default is Control Q. So if I come up here and I'm just on my page now, and without even going to the button, I can just use my keyboard, hit Control Q, and they all go away. So I can bounce back and forth very quickly. You could even set it, if you have a macro-driven mouse, you could set it right on your mouse hand so you can get that to that quickly. Final thing I'll point out is that I can turn it on right here for this particular digitizer, and if I go to different pages, it's still going to remain on. So that means it's still going to have those labels off as I toggle from page to page. So it does stick through page changes, but I'll also point out that if you open an additional digitizer window, so even though I'm looking at the same page, upper floor framing in both of these, you can see that this is controlled independently. So I can see the labels over here on this page, whereas on this same page over here, I don't look at them. So those are the variations that you can have as you use that new tool. Shifting over to come back to just this one program that I had open that doesn't have a job open yet. We made a small change over here in the File Recents menu. And you can see here that previously we showed that the entire file path for or a location for a particular job file. And so we cleaned that up a little bit, and in preparation for some other work, which I'll mention in a moment, but if you ever need to see where that particular file is located, you can always mouse over it right like this, and it will show you the entire file path for that particular object. So you still can get to that information. We just cleaned it up a little bit so there wasn't so much in your way, and also allowed us to make room for, you can see also we have some different icons going here. And so the folders that are right here, the folder icons, those would be just jobs that were stored in your local system. And the cloud shaped icons would be for jobs that were stored in the cloud. And so you guys don't have that feature yet, but it's a good opportunity just to show you that we're actually very close to finishing that feature up and getting that out there. So cloud stored opportunities for your project, so you can have them backed up in the cloud and then access them from different locations where you have an internet connection. Though that thing is coming very soon. So just pointing that out. I'm going to jump over to Hub here for the Hub users, and I'm going to jump back to MLX for one other thing as well. So just a couple small changes in Hub at the moment that I wanted to point out. Most of it just relates to files in your projects. So I'm going to come down over here to Liana's Kitchen, or no, Liana's Library project. And here in the Files menu, so you'll remember that you can come to any particular file and you can click on it and come to the view file version. So you can see version history for your particular files. If I open it up, you can see that this file has actually been updated a couple times. So that's been there before, but we added some additional information here just to make it more effective for you. One is the time of day. Previously, we just had the date showing. Now, for as you work on new files, you'll have this timestamp as well, so you can have a little more clarity of what's going on. And then also the who uploaded, who on your team would have uploaded the file. You can also make that observation. And of course, as you would expect with file version history, you can choose to open some of the previous ones, choose to make one current if you needed to go back a file or so on. So I'm going to close that. And then the other feature that we added in here, just a simple one, is if you go to delete a file, previously we just deleted the file for you. We just took your action as blah and we did it. Whereas now we're going to just, since the one-time thing that's hard to recover from, we'll warn you about that. So we added that warning symbol in there for you as well. So those are the kind of the minor changes for Hub, but I'm going to come back over here to MLX. And one of the features that I wanted to highlight here, is just as we finish up today, relates to, pull up a couple pages right here, relates to the overlay feature and being able to do a comparative overlays to help with your revision work. So this feature isn't new, but I felt it was important to bring to your attention for those of you who may not have used it before, or maybe you've forgotten about it. So I'm going to come here to this page. This is just an example of, it's a larger project, but let's say it's one that you worked on, you completed, and you sent it out for a bid or so on. And then it came back to you later on and they said, well, that's good, you got the work, but there's been some revision plans that have been done. We have a set of revisions that, can you go through and make the changes that might be necessary? And so then it's left on you to figure out, well, what's changed and do they actually impact my work or not? So what I can do is I can come here, here's my revision page, and here's my original page. So what I can do is I can right click on the revision page, come down to the bottom here and choose add this page as an overlay to the current page. When I do that, it gets added on. So I'm looking now, the red is the overlaid image, it's the revision work, whereas the black is the original page. And that helps a bit. I can start to take a look and understand what's going on. But the feature especially I wanted to point out is if you right click now on the overlay, over here in the markup items list, your overlay shows up. And I'm going to choose the option here for compare overlay to the page image. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to compare that overlay, that revision page, to the original, the page that is laid over the top of. And anything that's new in the revision turns red. Anything that is been removed in the revision, so it's on the original but it's not in the revision anymore, has been turned blue. So really easy to see now that in this case, this wall was removed and it was positioned down here in a new way on this revision. So now it's pretty easy to now go look around your project, understand, okay, the blue is what's old, the red is what's new, and you can get a good idea of what is influencing your scope of work and what you can just ignore, and the changes that you need to make. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, it's a feature that's been there for a while, but as your frame of or your line of work allows for it, I encourage you to make use of that feature. So again, just want to remind you also, as we finish here today, that cloud storage feature. I know there's some of you that had expressed interest in knowing when that for sure that was coming out. We mentioned that it was coming, and so it will be here soon. We're just finishing up, putting the final polish on that so we can get that out and available to you guys. So keep an eye out for that as well. So again, that's all we have for today. And if you have any questions about how to use these new features or any of the other ones, as always, feel free to call us at our support line or send us an email at support@prebuiltml.com or chat with us on the website. So thanks for joining us today. Have a good afternoon.